The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
USAA. The Elder Wand, the Resurrection Stone, the Cloak of Invisibility. Together they make the Deathly Hallows. Together they make one Master of Death. The last will and testament of Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore.
Do not pity the dead, Harry. Pity the living. And above all those who live without love.
Hey everyone, welcome to Hogwarts, a podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Hogwarts, a podcast. We are covering Chapter 34, The Forest Again. Mallory is back with us.
Hello.
And we have a lot of fallout from the previous chapter of Harry getting a real dose of history between Snape and his mother, and Snape and Albus, and all that Snape has done or not done, or all of that kind of good stuff. So Harry's gotten a lot of information here. And how does he reconcile that? He says, finally, the truth, to start off this chapter. He is made aware that he is not supposed to survive this. His will to live has always been stronger than his fear of death. I think that's just a cool quote. And I think it describes a lot of Harry Potter throughout the series, where he's put himself in such dangerous scenarios and circumstances. And I think this sums up a lot of it, is the will to live has always been stronger than the fear of death. He thinks of his wand saving him at the beginning of the chapter in the Seven Potters scene. He thinks of Hedwig dying so quickly, and he kind of almost is a little jealous of it, at least it seemed like to me when I was reading it, that Hedwig was just not even aware of it and then just gone. He finds himself wishing that he could instead launch himself in front of someone that he loved, and now starts envying his own parents' death, which is a super morbid, dark thought. And I mean, he's really coming to this chapter is really, really heavy in a lot of ways, because it's a lot of death talk. It's a lot of talk about death and what that means, and life too. It's a lot of like what your life is and what it has been and what does that even mean. But he starts off the chapter thinking about death and envying his parents' deaths. This, what he's asked to do, requires a whole different kind of bravery. And by that, I think he means he now knows he's going to die, and he has to walk himself to his own death. And it does. That requires a different level of courage and bravery that I think most can't really fathom, honestly. He never appreciated just what a miracle he was. And he didn't say it in a vain way. He was talking about what the brain is, what nerves are, what a heart can do. Like, what a miracle the human body is. Which is such a profound thought for a teenager to have. It is absolutely crazy just to see Harry process these kind of emotions. What do you think?
Yeah, this was a heavy, heavy chapter for me to read. I found myself getting very emotional at this. Just the thought process of like someone walking willingly to their death. And then that was the part, though, that I did love. Like, yeah, we are miracles, that we have brains and nerves and hearts and all of that. Just the thought process that's going through his head was just so depressing and sad. So it was actually really tough for me to read this chapter.
And then he realizes, oh, wait, I couldn't even get the job done. I failed. I messed up, because this was supposed to be the end game, and I haven't killed the snake yet.
I just want to give Harry a hug. I feel so bad for Harry. And it's not his fault. Albus, we talked about last chapter how Albus had this like intriguing ability to just like use people as pawns. And it's not Harry's fault that he was a pawn in this game that Albus and Voldemort were playing. But Harry didn't fail. It's not his fault that the snake's still alive.
He got to this moment a little quicker than I think Albus might have intended. However, he also makes the realization that my lifespan has always been tied to how quickly I got through the Horcruxes. Granted, this has gotten sped up a bit because him getting through the Horcruxes ended up actually speeding things up, because the Gringotts thing did not go as smoothly as it could have, thus alerting Voldy to the whole idea. And after that, it's just been a downhill, like, roller coaster ride. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's interesting that he makes the note of, like, hey, my lifespan has always been marked by how fast I could actually get the job done.
That is a wild realization. And for the reader, too. Like, I don't know if you remember when you first realized what was going on, but I remember being like, oh my gosh, that's what's happening? Like, he's going to his death because he's a Horcrux.
Yep. So Harry begins his lonely journey to the forest, and the castle is still eerily deserted. Not even the portraits are in their own portraits. They're still all huddled in the Great Hall. He adorns Invisibility Cloak to really make it impossible for him to get noticed or seen, despite him really wanting to be noticed or seen. It's like one of those things where it's like, I know I have a job to do, and I know I have to get from point A to point B, and I can't be seen, but I really hope someone gets in my way, and I really hope someone delays me, because I don't want that end result to come any quicker. Especially if those individuals are Ron and Hermione, because he knows it would be that much harder to do what he has to do. However, he does nearly bump into Neville, and Neville was carrying Colin Creevey, tiny in death.
Oh, this episode's just blow after blow. I cannot with this chapter.
It's a little out of nowhere, because you're all absorbed in what Harry's feeling and what Harry's thinking, and then you're taken out of it. And what are you taken out of it by? The death of a character who idolized Harry Potter, who's underage, should not have been there. And it's Neville, like, helping to carry him, which ultimately Oliver Wood, of all people, ends up taking Colin into the Great Hall alone. He literally fireman carries Colin Creevey's body into the Great Hall. And again, you're just hit with the fact of, like, there's so many people injured and dead, and we haven't even begun to really, like, get that yet. It's another reminder of this is a war. This is what Harry and Voldemort have come down to. So Harry ends up moving into the grounds. He sees Neville again. This time, he does bump into Neville, and he says, hey, Neville, the snake. Are you aware of Voldy's snake? It's called Nagini. Neville's like, yeah, I've heard tales of it. I've heard that it exists. Harry goes, well, you got to kill the snake. If for some reason I'm busy doing something and I'm not here, you got to do it. And Harry notes that Neville is now taking his place in the trio. It's now Neville, Ron, and Hermione. It's no longer Harry, Ron, and Hermione. How do we feel about that kind of recognition?
Wow, yeah. I didn't really think about that it's going to be Neville, Ron, and Hermione, because in this part of the chapter 2, Harry was talking about, like, oh, just in case Ron and Hermione, and then he stops himself and he's like, oh, I can't even think about them dying. Yep. So I didn't think that, oh, Neville's going to be in the trio until you just said that. I thought that Neville would take on the mantle if the trio died. But I think that Neville is someone that we don't give enough credit to, and he really shines at the Battle of Hogwarts, and he shines even during his bravery. It shows how true of a Gryffindor he is. But yeah, I didn't think about that the trio would be Neville, Ron, and Hermione. Or it could have been if Neville was the boy who lived. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's interesting that Neville is now taking that spot.
Yeah.
So now Harry is walking to his death, and Neville becomes the one that the boy who lived.
Wow.
You know? Wow. So Harry continues on to see Ginny. And this one hurts. This one's hard for him. One, because he's seeing Ginny. And two, Ginny is consoling a young girl who's whispering for her mother. wanting to go home. And she said, quote, I don't want to fight anymore. Ginny's a passionate, tough, strong individual. And this breaks her a little bit. And her voice cracks a little bit. And she's like, I know. We'll get you home. It's all good. Like, you're going to be okay. And that's another image of a younger student. I'm honestly flabbergasted that this student is actually alive, if I'm being 100% honest. Out in the grounds. Why is there a student her age even out in the grounds? Maybe should have put her deeper into the castle. Chaos is chaos, I suppose. But Harry hears this conversation. He thinks of going home. Until he realizes he is home. Hogwarts is his home. And he also makes the connection that he, Voldy, and Snape, quote, the abandoned boys, all found home at Hogwarts. So again, he himself is drawing comparisons to him and Snape of rough home lives that they did not find safety or fulfillment in, and they come to Hogwarts and they, for better or worse, find out who they are. And it's an interesting connection to make. Harry's clicking on the philosophy here.
Yeah.
Like, he's making some profound thoughts. He passes Hagrid's hut, and which, again, I'm surprised is even still standing at this point. But Hagrid's hut, and memories flash by of all the good times that he's had in and around Hagrid's hut. Then he stops on the edge of the Forbidden Forest. Dementors are patrolling the trees just beyond the edge. And he recognizes that he does not have the strength left in him to make a Patronus. He thinks it's not so easy to die. And that's a profound thought, too. Like, he's trying to literally die, and he can't even get to the spot where he needs to die. He can't even do that easily. It's a crazy roller coaster that he is going on right now. And as he's thinking about that, he thinks of the air that he's breathing, of the grass that he's smelling, and the precious seconds of life that he has left. And he thinks the game is over. The snitch is caught. Wait, the snitch. Snitch. Oh, the snitch. Okay. All right. Harry pulls out the snitch that Dumbledore gave him as part of the will way back when in this book. The snitch says, I open at the close. Harry kisses the snitch and says, I'm about to die. The shell breaks open, revealing a black stone with a crack down the middle.
I think this is so cool that, like, the purpose of the resurrection stone wasn't to bring back people from the dead to be with the living. It's to be truly a master of death and be like, okay, I'm accepting death and I'm with those who have died that I love. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so beautiful. I think that's wonderful. It's super dark and depressing.
I agree with you. I love that he's making a lot of recognitions in this chapter, and one of them was like, wait, it's okay for me to use the resurrection stone. I'm not using it like the brother did in the story. I'm not trying to bring someone back from death. I'm joining them. He was not fetching them. They're fetching him.
Yeah.
Which is a crazy surreal turnaround, which I love.
Yeah.
He turns the stone 3 times, and neither ghost nor flesh. It resembled mostly the riddle from the diary, and on each face, the same loving smile. James, exactly the same height as Harry, wearing clothes that he died in, glasses a little askew. Serious, handsome, younger by far than Harry had ever seen him in life, with a grin on his face. Lupin, also looking younger, less shabby, hair is fuller, happy to be back in a familiar place on the Hogwarts grounds. And then Lily, whose smile was widest of all, looks at him as though she'd never see enough of him. And so, before we get into like a little break here, let's just talk about this idea of these 4 individuals. I think are really interesting. You get James, Sirius, Lupin, and Lily. I know when I was reading this, I don't think I expected 4. I expected James and Lily. And Sirius makes a lot of sense. However, this is pretty definitive proof for all of our Sirius Black isn't really dead conspiracy theorists.
Wait, there's a conspiracy for Sirius Black not really being dead?
Yes, that him going through the veil did not mean he's dead. He's just maybe on another plane of existence.
But no, he's dead.
He is dead.
But wait, if you have a conspiracy theory, I'm going to hit you back with a conspiracy theory. Okay. I heard about this one with the Resurrection Stone, that they're not really the souls of the people that you love. The Resurrection Stone just shows you that, and they try and tempt you into death.
So,
did you ever hear about that theory?
So, I have not heard about that theory. However, when I was reading this, that's the vibe I got. Honestly.
They're all smiling, and they're like, come with us.
Yeah. It's like, it's okay.
It's kind of
it's
a horror
totally
movie.
Like, and we'll get into how the conversation actually breaks down in the part 2 here. But yeah, I got that darker vibe. If you wanted to go like a whole dark Harry Potter for a second, like, yeah, I can also see that, where they're luring him to death specifically. Granted, this is where he wants to go there anyway, but you got to remember, this is a gift from death. Death always wins. This one is particularly pretty on the nose of how he wins.
Yeah.
And it's luring people to death. So if you want to go a real dark route, they're not here to support him. They're here to help kill him.
I'd like to think that they're the actual souls or forms of the people that Harry loves, and they're supporting him at his hardest moment. I'd like to think that, but some of these theories are really fun to conceptualize and think about. Yeah, I don't know. It is giving kind of a horror movie vibe.
I never thought about that angle until this read for this recording. And it struck me. And I'm like, should I be thinking this? But I'm kind of getting that vibe.
It could be. It's fun to think.
It's just funny you brought up that theory, and I actually had that same thought without hearing that theory of like, hey, wait a second, this could be really dark. But
it is fun to think about, though, and a little scary, but I'd like to think that it's actually Lily and Lupin and Sirius and James.
Well, we will pause here and take a little break, and we'll be back with the second part of this chapter where we get those specific interactions with Harry and Lily, James, Sirius, and Lupin. Also, please reach out on our social medias. Reach out at Hogwarts a Pod. You can find us on YouTube, on Blue Sky, on Instagram. Participate in those polls that we have up on Spotify, and let us know what you think about all of these theories, whether they're conspiracy theories or not. Let us know what you think. We will take a break, and we'll be right back. Before we get to our break sound, I'd like to acknowledge our friend Andy, who helps us produce our intros and our break sounds. If you want to hear more of Andy's work and like Formula One racing, check out the Outlap F1 podcast. It's your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. You can find them wherever you listen to podcasts, and they even have a YouTube page. So check out Andy, Cody, John, James, and Deanna, and join them on the Outlap.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Dobby has no master. Dobby is a free elf.
All right, so we are back with part 2 of chapter 34, The Forest Again. And obviously we left off with Harry summoning some people that he has loved in his life to help him make this last lonely walk. And he speaks with those that he's loved and lost. Lily is the first one to say something, and Lily says, "You've been so brave." Harry he can't even form a sentence right now. He's a little stunned and just wants to look at her forever. James says, "You're nearly there. Very close. We are so proud of you." And the first thing Harry says is he blurts out what he thinks is a relatively dumb question of, "Does it hurt?" Which Sirius responds, "Dying? Not at all. It's quicker and easier than falling asleep. Lupin says he will want it to be quick. He wants it over. Harry says, I didn't want you to die. Any of you. I'm sorry. And he addressed this mostly to Lupin, who he then says, right after your son, Remus, I'm sorry. And Lupin says, I'm sorry too. Sorry I'll never know him, but he'll know why I died, and I hope he'll understand why I was trying to make a better world in which he could live a happier life. Harry asks them if you'll stay with me, and James says, until the very end. Harry says, they won't see you? And Sirius responds with, we are a part of you, invisible to anyone else. And Harry addresses Lily specifically and says, stay close to me. Harry passes by the Dementors as the apparitions act as Patronuses. What do you think about all of those interactions?
Reading this again after talking about that conspiracy theory, it does give a little bit darker lens on it. Like, oh yeah, don't worry, it doesn't hurt. Like, come on over.
You're nearly there.
Time to die, Harry.
Very close.
Yeah. So that I couldn't get that out of my head, but I did think about like other people that were important to him that have also died, and why these four in particular are there. So why, like, obviously his parents, Sirius played a father role, and so did Lupin. But what about like Mad Eye or some of the other people he lost? Like, why just these four?
Fred. Can you imagine if Fred was here?
Yes. No, exactly. And is there a time frame that they need to die too?
Well, Lupin.
Oh yeah,
just
Lupin.
died.
That's true. But yeah, I just like, he lost so many people. Why was there only four?
There's also a clear choice where you almost had a reunion of Marauders. You just didn't have Peter Pettigrew.
Right.
So.
Right, yeah.
Can you imagine him just walking in and being like, hey guys? And then just giving him a look like, why are you here? Or Moaning Myrtle. Can you imagine if Moaning Myrtle just walked in on this scene?
Oh my god. That's the Harry Potter I want to see. Just Moaning Myrtle, like, throughout the whole series.
Harry, we could share a U-bend together. Oh my god.
Just sharing. You could share the bathroom with me.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Cedric Diggory. That would be an interesting person to pop up.
Cedric. Robert Pattinson. Gotta be. Yeah, no, actually, like, I feel like Harry has lost so many people in his young life, like,
yeah,
that it's almost fitting that the father figures and the mother are the ones that showed up, right? He needs them more than ever right now. Because when you think about, like, when you need mom and dad or parents or parental figures, whoever you're closest to, are through those major life transitions, and death is a major life transition. So it makes sense that those are the four. But I did think about, like, other people he's lost and have died, like Mad Eye. I don't know why I keep going to Mad Eye, but I'm like wondering why he's not there.
So you're telling me you wouldn't want Snape to show up in this final meeting and just fist bump James, fist bump Sirius, and be like, fooled you all, we're actually really best friends.
Oh my, that would be a great twist. That'd be a twist. That would be a twist.
Would that redeem him in your eyes then?
I don't know, but then what would be his interaction with Lily? Just give her a big smooch? I don't know.
And then James is like, oh okay, all right.
That's enough. I don't know, but it does make sense that those four are the ones that Harry summoned through the Resurrection Stone.
So we get Yaxley and Dolohov, who were sent by Voldy to search the forest for Harry, and they nearly run into him, and they hear a rustle in the woods, and they're like, you know, he does have a cloak. You think he might actually be here? You think he could be here right now? No, I don't think so. I don't think he's coming, and we'll just go back to Voldy. So Harry follows them to Voldy, which is very fortuitous because it's a big forest. Who knows where he's at? But where is Voldy? Voldy is in Aragog's old lair, and which is just interesting because obviously you see all of the spiders that participated in this battle. So were they based still at Aragog's lair, and then the Death Eaters came in and dispersed them to create this? Or did they just, like... I guess what I'm saying is, the spiders seemed very formidable. And I don't know how many Death Eaters he has in this crew right here, but... I mean, it is Voldy himself, too. I mean, for all we know, Voldy just, like, one spell created, like, a spider-proof bubble around this area that they couldn't penetrate. Whatever. But I do think it's interesting that Voldy chose Aragog's lair, Aragog being, like, the king of this forest, or what he somewhat was portrayed as. I'm sure the centaurs would disagree with that, but an Acromantula lair. He had 2 giants set up on the outskirts of the group. Death Eaters were looking on, some masked, some not. Greyback, seemingly recovered from Trelawney's vicious attack, was nursing his own wounds. And
Love it. Trelawney fan all the way.
Raoul, Lucius, Narcissa are all present, and Bellatrix is sitting closest to Voldy. So again, setting the stage here, I think, is just important for who we still have on this game board. There's still a lot of very potent, very dangerous Death Eaters still alive.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show you that Voldy wasn't kidding in his speech at the beginning of the last chapter when he was like, we will win this. Your forces are depleted. They fought valiantly, but your forces are depleted. We are winning. And by the numbers that they have here, just by the individuals, plus 2 giants, yeah, that's a threatening group to still have.
Yeah. It's also interesting with Aragog's lair that, like, he was a king, right? In his spidery sense, he was a king, and like Voldy is so arrogant that he's like, yeah, I'm the king now, and kind of like using this as his setting. That's an interesting environment. I do wonder about Bellatrix and like her relationship with Voldy, and how she just pushes herself as close to him as possible, and how he allows her to be that close to him. Isn't that dynamic so interesting?
Yes. It's interesting for a couple of reasons. One, she's obviously usurped Snape's place as the right-hand individual. But as we've seen, the right hand of Voldy is a precarious ledge to be perched on, because Lucius was there, and he has fallen precipitously from that, and Snape, dead. So, being so close to Voldy, maybe not the best place. Maybe you want to be a little further back. But why I find it so interesting is she is a married woman. Her and Rodolphus Lestrange are married. And I can't imagine Rodolphus is like super cool with her fawning over this other guy constantly. I know he's also like the sycophantic Death Eater, like, bought in. So, like, anything for the cause. I mean, anything for the cause, otherwise I die anyway. But still, that would be an interesting couples therapy to sit on.
Yeah. I always think, when I think of Bellatrix, I think of the difference between Molly Weasley and Bellatrix, and the difference of love, and how they represented, like, Bellatrix represented this obsessive, really sick love, and then
you want an
Molly
obsession. Bellatrix with Voldy is an obsession.
Yes, that is true.
The true definition of obsession.
Yes, that is true. Kind of like Snape and Lily. Gotta bring it back.
I really thought I drew enough of a difference between the Bellatrix Voldy and the Snape Lily relationships. There's a clear line between those 2 relationships, I feel like.
Whatever. He's not here, but Bellatrix is here. But it just like makes me laugh how she just like pushes herself to the front, and she just is so obsessed. Yeah, you're right. Obsessed with Voldy. Ooh, Nagini is still floating in her cage.
Yes, Nagini is still present and still floating in her charmed cage. He has not lifted that charm yet. But Harry has arrived, and he removes his cloak and tucks the invisibility cloak and his wand underneath his robes so that he's not tempted to defend himself. Per Albus's thought of it's got to be Voldy, and you have to sacrifice yourself for this. Voldy starts contemplating why Harry isn't there. He was like, it seems, mistaken. I love that when Voldy is confused about something and actually utters the words out loud that he's mistaken, every one of the Death Eaters around him just like suddenly like inches a little bit further away because they're expecting like, oh, this is not going to go well. Like, are we all going to be punished for something or just death, or how is this going to go? They're all scared to death of this man.
Yeah, because he's going to have a tantrum. He's a little baby.
It's okay because we get Harry giving the Harry sass that we have always loved.
Love it.
Voldy says, it seems, mistaken. And Harry loudly says, you weren't. And he drops the stone. And as he drops the stone into the foliage of the forest, his support around him also vanishes. Hagrid yells, Harry, no! Bound to a tree, he is quieted quickly by Rowell. Voldy starts staring at Harry, and I'm imagining like an old Western standoff. Like they're each at the end of like Main Street, and it's just them. Like everybody else has disappeared. It's just them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And Voldy stares at Harry and says, Harry Potter, the boy who lived. And again, everyone is motionless on pins and needles, waiting to hear what Voldy says or does next, because everybody's a little... Well, one, they're stunned that Harry's even here. Like, they are floored at that point. Some of them are stunned, some of them cheer, some of them are, like, screaming in joy. Like, there's a whole range of reactions. But Hagrid continues to struggle against his binds, and Harry thinks of Ginny in this moment of peril.
That's so sweet.
Voldy, curiously, raises his wand because he's not sure what will happen next himself. Every attempt that he has had to end this boy's life has resulted in chaos and calamity for him. I mean, obviously there's the OG circumstance where he tried to kill him as a baby, did not work.
Yeah.
And then obviously, book 1 and book 2 and like on book 4 and then book 5 and then book 6. None of these
Never
has worked out. So,
yeah.
By the way, also at the start of book 7, he tried really hard to kill him in the beginning of this book, and did not happen. So he curiously raises his wand. Harry sees the mouth move and a flash of green light. Everything was gone.
Wow.
And that's how this chapter ends. I'm going to guess, Mallory, when you read this for the first time, and he hits Harry with the killing curse and everything was gone, I'm gonna guess you flipped to the next page as quickly as you possibly could.
Yeah, like right now, I know what happens, but I want to read the next chapter. I want to talk about the next chapter.
I know that when I was reading this, I'm like, wait, we're here now? Like, there's like several chapters left. Like, what? But how? And then you immediately flip the page and continue reading this roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on this thing as a whole, this chapter?
Oh, well, I just go back to Hagrid. Like, that breaks my heart. Then he's like, Harry, no! And he's just so sad that Harry shows up, because that's also, like, such a really deep, scary thing for the people that Harry loves. Like, if Ginny knew where he was, that's probably another reason why Harry's thinking of Ginny, because Ginny's gonna kick his ass. Like, he's gonna be like, you did what?
Yeah. And that's part of the reason why he's like, I can't see Ron, I can't see Hermione, I can't see Ginny, because especially Ron and Hermione know everything, so they know what I'm probably gonna do, and they are not gonna let me do it. So, and then Ginny, obviously, no. Absolutely. Not alone. She'd go with them, which,
Ginny would not allow Harry to do this reckless behavior. But it does like make sense, and now we know why he's doing that, right? To kill the Horcrux so that it'll be easier for everyone to defeat Voldemort.
There's still two remaining, though. There's the part of Voldy's soul that's in him, Voldy himself, and the snake. It's not easy.
Right.
So, I mean, Harry, like he said at the beginning of this chapter, is like, I really wish I could have gotten that snake before I have to make this moment reality.
I feel like he should have told more people what was going on, right? Instead of hiding under the... Which, again, I'm not faulting him from that. Like, he just learned about, like, that he has to die, and that's some heavy news. But I feel like, don't you think he should have told more people than just Neville? Like, hey, kill the snake?
I feel like he describes the feeling of him taking on the Albus role as well, of, like, I want to tell somebody. Somebody has to do this. But also, maybe only 3 people need to know at any given time. And that's where Neville kind of usurps Harry in the trio thing.
Why, though?
You'd have to ask Dumbledore that, and why he kept his secrets, the way he did. I think it's because if too many people know, that puts way too many people in danger as well.
But wouldn't that make them more powerful, right?
Maybe.
If more people knew...
Who would you have asked in this moment other than Neville?
Well, he passed by... This would be so hard for Harry, right? And I wouldn't do this. So I don't know why I'm saying that Harry should do this, but logically it would be smart to tell the Weasleys, to tell the remaining Order members.
I agree. So my original thought would be the first person he would want to probably tell about this might be Lupin, but he's not an option anymore. So I guess the next person, if you're going with a member of the Order, might be Arthur? Would you tell Arthur about this? You have a pretty close connection with Arthur. Arthur has seemed generally very reasonable. I guess you could tell McGonagall.
Yeah.
Hey, if you see Voldy's snake, you need to end it. And here's how.
Yeah.
But McGonagall I like a lot. Only because, this sounds harsh, she's lived a life. So, and as far as we know, I don't know that she has anybody else in her life. I don't know if she has kids, or I don't know if she has, whatever, a spouse or whatever. So the idea of her putting herself in danger might seem a little bit more doable than, let's say, an Arthur. There's a lot of people that still depend on Arthur. There's pros and cons, I guess, to each character.
You can make that... I think you just want to kill off McGonagall for some reason.
No, I like McGonagall a lot. I've had a couple of issues with her, but certainly not enough to be like, she needs to go.
No, because you can make that argue that she's now taken on the mantle of, like, taking care of the kids at Hogwarts.
That's true, too. That's
so
fair.
She has responsibility, too. But I just think that, like, if I was Harry in the situation... No, I wouldn't tell anyone. If all I could muster up is to tell Neville something, like kill the snake, Neville, then that's all I would be able to do. I'm not faulting Harry, but logically, like there should have been another plan in place to tell other Order members. Knowing that Harry needed to die, there should have been other plans in place to kill that snake. That's now under protection of Voldemort in its little cage.
Speaking of, it's really interesting that we get the memory of Albus telling Snape about Nagini. And then in Snape's final moments, when he walks into that shrieking shack, he's like, why am I called in? I'm like leading our forces. We're winning. Why'd you pull me from the battlefield? And then he sees Nagini in a protective bubble. And that's all he can then stare at. And now we know that what was going through Snape's mind was, it's time. This is the time. He's overprotective of the snake. Harry must be pretty close. So, and then I think Elizabeth counted how many times Snape offered to go back into the grounds to go find Harry. 4. 4 times at that point, he was like, oh, that snake. I can go find Harry for you. I can go find him. I'll go back into the grounds. You stay here, I'll do it. And Willie was like, no, he'll come to me. And Snape during that time was thinking, like, hey, this is pretty close. I need to tell Harry what he needs to know at this point. So it's now recontextualizing just a scene that we had like 2 chapters ago, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, it is a sad chapter to talk about.
It's a dark, morbid chapter that features a lot of talk about death and what death means, and also what life is and what life means too, which I think is a really interesting point to bring up as well. But yeah, we will wrap up this chapter here for chapter 34, The Forest Again. Let us know what you guys think by commenting on all of our socials, commenting on this episode on Spotify, participating in the poll on Spotify. All of our socials can be found at HogwartsAPod. And with that, we will leave it here and be back next week with chapter 35. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to Hogwarts, a podcast. If you like what you've heard, please click the subscribe button on your preferred podcasting app and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at HogwartsAPod.